We begin with breaking news from the Vatican. 62 cultural objects from First Nations, Métis and Inuit communities will return to Canada. Pope Leo has, quote, gifted the cultural items to the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops. That's according to a joint statement released this morning from the Vatican and the bishops. Once repatriated, the Catholic Church in Canada is expected to identify the origins of each item and then hand them over to the various Indigenous groups they came from. The move follows years of calls for the Catholic Church to return cultural items that have been held in Vatican museums for decades. For more on this, the CBC's Megan Williams is in Vatican City.
Well, a historic step towards reconciliation between the Roman Catholic Church and Indigenous communities who for years have been asking the Vatican to repatriate these cultural objects. The objects including this beautiful kayak, Inuviluit kayak, came here to the Vatican 100 years ago for a world exposition. That was when the then Pope Pius XI asked missionaries from around the world to bring Indigenous objects for this global show. And since then, they've been sitting in vaults inside the Vatican museums. Now, the statement released today, it was a joint statement by the Vatican and the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, said that Pope Leo had gifted these objects to the Canadian bishops. So the Vatican isn't giving these objects, these cultural objects, back to the communities directly. The Vatican does not want to set a precedent, very likely, of doing that. So it does what it calls these church-to-church donations. So it gives, the Vatican gives it to the church in Canada. But the bishops released a statement this morning as well, saying that they will hand over those cultural objects to the Indigenous communities once they arrive in Canada. They're set to arrive on December 6th via Air Canada, an Air Canada flight from Rome, stopping in Frankfurt, landing in Montreal. They'll then be shipped to the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, Quebec. Experts will look at it there, and with representatives of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities, they'll figure out where these objects came from and where they should eventually end up. This is the end of a years-long process of negotiations between the Vatican, the Canadian government, as well as the Canadian bishops. Megan Williams, CBC News, the Vatican.